In this video, we want to look at getting the right recovery rebate credit on the 2020 tax return. All right, I've got 7 areas you need to be aware of, you need to know about in order to make the calculations on your 2020 1040 correct. And there's several questions in this area. So I'm going to try to take my time. I'm going to try to cover the issues. But before we jump into all the issues, step 1, or the first item, is a quick review. I call it 1A, is the economic impact payment, or the EIP, or sometimes called the stimulus payment, or called the advance payment. And when you go to do your 1040 tax return, you're going to be looking for the form 1444, or that was for the first EIP, and then you're going to be looking for the second payment, which would be on a 1444B. That's important. Those were all considered advance prior to filing your 2020 return. But now we're filing a 2020 return, we're going to be looking at, again, what they call the RRC, or the Recovery Rebate Credit. The second item in our first issue of review is that, as we know, in the first one you were eligible up to $1,200 or $2,400 married filing separate and $500 for each kid. And that would come through on the form 1444. And you'll see that in your bank account. Second one, EIP, was $600 for everybody, including the qualified child. The next thing we need to be aware of is, again, the threshold of $75,000 for a single person, $112,500 for head of household, and $150,000 for a married couple. If your income is above that, then it's phased out till it's completely phased out. So again, that's 3 or 4 areas of review. So that's step 1. Now we're going to get into the meat of things. And this is what's going to really help you do your 1040 tax return. So on the 2020 return, the thing I want to look at there is that parents receive the EIP for 2020 for their child who turned 17 in 2020. For a qualifying child, if the child was 16 on the 2019 return, they went on ahead and made an advanced payment. And in some cases, many cases, they paid 2 advanced or 2 EIP payments. In doing so, the question is, what do I do with that? Because now I'm filing the 2020 return. Do I need to do anything with that? Do I have to repay back those advance payments? And the answer is no. You should not be paying back because, again, the advance payments was based on the 2019 return, and we're now doing the 2020 return. So that's what I'd call a free pass. That's very good news. So that's our second item. Again, if the child turns 17 in 2020 on the 2020 1040, even though you got advance payments based on the 19, for that child being 16, you don't have to repay it. Let's now go to our third item. Parents who don't file married filing joint. This one's a huge one. And so let's say it's where there's a child, it's a couple that every other year they rotate. Every other year the father gets it, every other year the mother gets it. Well, if they filed, this was an advance credit, and so in that case they made the credit payment based on the 2019 return. So that would have been to parent number 1. So that parent got the stimulus payments. Well, wait a minute. This credit is actually a 2020 tax credit. It's the recovery rebate credit, and you reconcile the advance payments based on the 19 and 2020. Well, here again is really some good news, because the parent that claimed a 19 that got the 2 advance payments on that child, they get to keep that payment, and the parent that should have got the credit for the recovery rebate credit on the 2020 return, you're going to fill out that worksheet on the recovery rebate credit, and that parent also is going to get those credits. So it's kind of a win-win. Some people call it a double payment on the same child. But I know that's a really huge question out there, so that's our third issue, or our third item. Now let's go on ahead, and I'm kind of making sure I cover each one of these thoroughly, because again, it's a very complex area and what should be very straightforward. Okay, the fourth item, reconcile the rebate with the advance payment. Now, in this case, again, this all is an advance payment on the 2019 return. We go to calculate, we have our 1444 and we have our 1444B. And what happens is that if we calculate that rebate, the actual rebate, the recovery rebate credit on the 2020 return, and it's greater than the advance payments on those forms, the 1444, 1444B, then that is a refundable credit against your 2020 tax liability. So if the advance payment was not the correct amount and it should have been higher because of change in income, change in qualifying, then we're going to get the best of both worlds. We will get an additional recovery rebate credit above our EIP on our 2020 tax return. Now, let's just reverse that. Let's say that in this case that we look at the 1444 and the 1444B, and we've got those numbers, and we put it in the worksheet for the recovery rebate, and all of a sudden we realize that the EIPs were greater because of a change of income than what we calculated on the recovery rebate. There, the question is, do we have to pay it back? And again, consistent with our last two issues, it's called it does not increase your tax liability. So the important thing out of our issue 4 is looking at, I got these advance payments, the EIPs, the stimulus checks, and now I'm doing my 2020 return. Well, the stimulus payment was based on 19. Now we're doing the 2020. And the neat thing about it, if you should have gotten more than the advance payments, you get that on your 2020 return. And if you shouldn't have got as much, you don't have to repay it. That's just super good news. Let's move on to our 5th one. Our 5th one is the advance refund, or in the case of filing the return for 2020, our recovery rebate credit is not taxable. Let's move now to item number 6. What happens if my AGI is greater than the threshold? So there in 19, our income was down and we got these advance payments. And we go to file a 2020. And you remember in the reviews, our first step, we went into the thresholds of the $75,000 for single and $150,000 for married filing joint. In 2020, let's say we were even beyond the phase outs and we were entitled to no credit. Well, being consistent with the prior issue 2, 3, and 4, you do not have to repay it. But let's say in 2019 that our income was too high and we didn't get any advance payments, any EIPs. In that case, if we fill out the recovery rebate credit worksheet and our income is down, then at that point in time, we could be entitled to a credit. So we need to fill out that rebate recovery worksheet to see if, again, 2019, our income was too high, or AGI, adjusted gross income, it was too high. What happens? In 2020, if it dropped and we came under the thresholds, then at that point in time, we're going to get a refundable credit on our 2020 1040. And our final bullet, our final issue, number 7, someone who died before the receipt of the recovery rebate advance payment, that should be returned to the IRS. It should not be cashed and it should be returned. At this point in time, the remaining question is, what do I do if the check is cashed? It was put into the bank. We're still waiting on IRS guidance. And when I get that, I will come back and I will do a presentation on that. In summary, I don't know how, I guess maybe that's not true. I've been around tax law long enough to know better than saying what I started to say. Something as simple as a credit in a pandemic, because you're trying to get it to them real time, in that creates complexity, because it's in all this discussion. It was based on a 2019 tax return. That's all was available. This was passed by Congress. But in every one of these issues we looked at, the advance is, when in doubt, you get to keep it, except for the death of a taxpayer before the receipt. But with that, I hope this really helps in doing your 2020 1040. And again, Stay tuned. Hey, like it, hit that button there, subscribe, and more importantly, I was talking to a person in Minnesota yesterday with a question at West YouTube, and the nicest thing is that she made the remark, I am sharing this because it's tax season. This is important. I hope this helps. Take care and see you on the next video.